Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Since we bottomed November 22 of the bear market, we have now completed 1 year of our new bull trend. Because we've completed 1 year up, this means we still have 2 years to go. Historically, Bitcoin uptrends have lasted 3 years in the bull market and 1 year in the bear market. I'm going to break down every single cycle going back to 2015. We're going to talk about how this cycle lines up with some of the years past, how we can use these similarities to look to take profits coming into this next cycle, and most importantly, how to gauge how much time we still have to go before we actually need to take those profits. Thank you so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video. I wanted to break down each and every cycle, considering the fact we just barely hit our first year inside of the new bull trend. Now remember guys, when we're analyzing the 4-year cycles, we know that historically speaking, Bitcoin bear markets have lasted 1 year, and the last 2 bear markets have lasted almost exactly 1 year, from the top to the bottom. Now when we're looking and comparing each one of these trends, it's important to have the awareness to be able to see each and every cycle, because this puts into perspective where we're at in the current cycle as well. Now, if we come back down here and take a look at this first bear market back in 2014, we ended up topping at 2014, the very beginning of the year, and then our first year ended right here. This was that same exact 1 year point. Now, even though we ended up seeing one more low, we pretty much captured the majority of the bear market, being the top of the cycle, all the way down to just that minus that one lower low here, as being 1 year of that move. Now, our second year takes us the entirety of this accumulation, which was actually 280 days before we broke out of it. So about 8 or 9 months that we spent throughout this period here. And then our second year of the bear market actually ended right there, at the very beginning of that first higher high. Because remember, this was the bottom of the accumulation range. We went through this double bottom formation, and then when we broke out of that and flipped it as support right here, that's where we began the new trend. So we had just only completed the beginning of the higher high, the first higher high of the new bull trend, going into 2 years inside of our cycle. Because what we're looking at here is the first year of the bear market, right? We're looking at year 1, which is historically speaking for Bitcoin, the bear market. And then the second year is the first year of the bull trend, remember? Because we're looking at 4-year cycles. And inside of each cycle, we have 3 years up, which would be the uptrend. And then we have 1 year down, which is the bear market. And so looking at the cycle back here in 2018, we can see the same thing, where we have the top of the cycle, the beginning of the bear market, and then the end of that 364 days was right here at the exact low. So we see exactly a 1 year bear market from cycle top to cycle bottom. And then we get, in our first year of the bull market, we get this higher high and then this higher low, right? And then this isn't showing COVID. We ended up seeing obviously one big move after and then another massive capitulation lower. But this is just sharing with you guys where we were at in this cycle. The first year was just the bear market, and then the second year was just this higher high from here to here, because this was the end of the year 2019, beginning of the year 2020 right here. And that's actually where my YouTube channel started to take off, was this period right before COVID. And so this is what we were seeing inside of the cycles. This cycle had a much more parabolic move off of the bear market bottom, and we had a much more significant drop on the way back down, this one being about a 40% correction. And then we even had a bigger one going into COVID right there. But I mean, overall, similar type of market structure. 1 year bear market, and then the beginning of the uptrend, the first higher high of the new bull market. This one was just bigger. Now, if we're coming into the current cycle that we're at today, we see pretty much the same sort of similarities. Not much has changed for the most part. We saw the cycle top here, and then we saw the cycle bottom right here. And this was exactly 364 days. So it was the exact same amount of time as this cycle top to this cycle bottom right here back in 2018. So both of these were the same amount of time. And now when we're comparing that, we just barely finished that 1 year mark right here, getting into November, because that was where our cycle bottom was. So we've seen 1 year down, and we just finished 1 year up, the first year of our new bull trend. Historically speaking, Bitcoin uptrends last 3 years, like I said. So we still have a ways to go, but when we're comparing all of these cycles, in my opinion, they're really not that far apart from each other. We see just the beginning of the uptrend. We've had a nice uptrend so far, just very consistent higher highs and higher lows, as we've just stabilized along this uptrend. And now that we actually flipped this 25K level being right here, I think that that's really setting us in for the bulk of our uptrend to begin from here. When we're looking at our last cycle, kind of where Bitcoin flipped this 6K mark was right here at the end of that year. Remember, that was kind of where we flipped it here. We're seeing a similar type of setup where we just flipped 25K, because that was the first higher high that we've really set in a new trend. That was the level that we had to get above in the last cycle, being 2018 and 2019, to really cement a true bull cycle. We knew that as long as we held support above this prior support in the bear market before our big capitulation, we knew that we were going to be bullish, and we would set in a further for continuation into new all-time highs. And that's what we ended up seeing. Even though we ended up seeing a short-term capitulation that went back down to retest this level right here, it's still ultimately the same sort of setup where we retested 25K, we held that, and that's really where I think that that's going to set in the bulk of our uptrend, because that's what gave us confirmation of the new trend being up. And all of these are very similar. We spent 280 days inside of this bottom over here back in 2015, and then once we broke out of it, flipped it as support in this move, that's where we got the beginning and the bulk of our uptrend going towards those prior all-time highs of that last cycle top. So all of these have been lining up, and that's why I think it's important to put them into perspective and see how this current cycle is as well. So now we're going to be getting over here and looking at the total market cap. Now guys, I've actually gone ahead and made the charts black. As you can see, the backgrounds are black. So I had somebody actually comment that, and I went and actually just happened to have my prior chart setup saved, my presets. So I posted them back up here, and I actually do like it a little bit. So I wanted to see what your guys' opinions are. Drop it in the comments. If you guys don't like the black, let me know. If you guys prefer white, or vice versa, if you guys prefer the black over the white, let me know. And depending on what you guys will say, I will switch it as following. So when we're looking at the total market cap, guys, this is a really important setup, because we knew that we were below this resistance for so long. Remember, many altcoins bottomed in June right here. Even though Bitcoin went lower, many altcoins bottomed right there. And so we had kind of spent this time going below that resistance here, that resistance here when we first started breaking back out again. And then the entirety of this time was also taking us to pretty much where we broke down from the Terra Luna collapse. Because if you guys remember, if I draw this box all the way over to here, you guys are going to be able to tell. This takes us all the way back to the bull run, where we had this first sell-off, and then we found support right here. That was Bitcoin bottoming at 30K. And then that took us to that final new all-time high to finish out the cycle. And this was a very important support level. And once that became resistance here, here, and here during the Terra Luna collapse, that was a very important point. And for the majority of that time, since it happened, we've been below that level. And if we actually pull up a date tool, we're going to be looking at 555 days of total time that we've been inside of this sort of range, I guess you could say. And now that we're finally looking like we're flipping it as support, indicated here, I do believe that we could get that next run up, because we don't have a lot of resistance until probably up to this level here, being 1.67 trillion. And most likely, if we run up to there, I wouldn't be surprised to see this secondary pullback before making a much bigger move to wrap it up, being Bitcoin at 48,500, potentially ETH at 35,500, almost said 1,000, but regardless, all of these up to the top of their lower high. A lot of altcoins up to the top of their lower high if they end up performing very well. We're already seeing how well Solana's performing, and that's kind of a prime example of certain altcoins are going to wrap up their bear markets, they're going to kick off their bull cycles and really outperform and catch people off guard. So it really just depends which ones are going to do those type of a move, it's the ones that see adoption the quickest first. But the point that I'm trying to make here, guys, is there's really not much resistance left. You know, this is kind of our last area of demand. This takes us all the way back to that 30K support level. You know, we've spent so much time going below this level. And in my opinion, in the same way that we were looking at these other charts, kind of talking about how, you know, 25K was this important level that we get above, and how 6K was the important level that we hold above. And, you know, the bottom of the double bottom formation was kind of that big pivot point in 2014 and 16, in 2015 and 16. You know, this current cycle, I think, is going to be revolving around this point here, being Bitcoin, you know, probably right around that 30K mark. But the total market cap specifically is what we're mainly talking about, is it right here. Because, you know, the total market cap, we never got above our true highs. We've never made a true higher high yet. We've still been consolidating below this level. So now that we finally got above it here, in my opinion, that's the same significance as Bitcoin basically breaking above 25K and retesting 25K, getting that confirmation above it. And so I do think that now sets us in for a much bigger move to the upside, potentially the one all the way back up to $48,500 per Bitcoin. So when we're looking at these guys, I think it's important that we're pointing this out now, because we're pretty much leaving the accumulation phase. The accumulation phase was all throughout this period here. Now we're getting to a point where I believe we're about to experience much more significant markup. And so if you aren't prepared now, you don't really have a choice but to kind of FOMO in and jump into the market. If you are prepared, now comes the period where we really want to just be looking to hold, because the real profit potential, the whole point that we've been buying and accumulating throughout here, we want to be able to really look to capture the majority of this move if we do look to take profits on our short-term stuff. But our long-term stuff that we accumulated down here, you know, we're just going to be looking to hold long-term. After we see a move that takes us back up to this level, we should expect to see some type of, you know, correction back down. That's just a totally healthy move. Don't be surprised if it takes us all the way back down near the top of this range, or, you know, we could even retest this range. Don't be surprised and caught off guard if we see something like that. Big picture, we could see our entire trend develop, you know, something like this. And I won't be the least bit surprised, considering that would be very much more like the 2017 uptrend that we saw to kind of kick off that cycle. Something along the lines of that. You know, don't be caught off guard if we see this type of stuff. And if you do get worried about seeing a big correction all the way back down to pretty much where we're at, you know, take profits up here. Look to just buy that type of a dip, because I really don't think that we should be surprised if we do see some type of big sell-off back down. And even if it doesn't come all the way back down to where we're at today and it gets relatively close to, I think that we're at least going to see a 20 to a 40% correction on the way back down. So we should at least be looking to buy that potential dip if we have short-term investments into different altcoins, into different things that you just planned on holding this entire breakout. That's really where you're going to want to take profits on. And potentially anything that you think could have a lot of downside risk if we did see a big correction, that type of stuff. It's just a good opportunity to de-risk when the market's up, going towards a major resistance level, because that's just where the most risk is inside of the market. So now, guys, I wanted to actually talk about one altcoin that I think is going to be popping off in a big way very soon. An altcoin that goes back all the way to the beginning of crypto, and one that a lot of people are writing off, but they always do that every single bear market. Now, it's worth a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. Dogecoin is worth a significant amount of money today, but I don't think that that's any reason to write it off, and I still think it's going to provide very good opportunity. Now, the reason I say that is because the certain altcoins have popped off so far, being Solana, Chainlink. Those are two of the high caps that have really started to take off, and I think that Dogecoin isn't really far behind. And you could throw XRP into that equation as well, but for the sake of time, we're just going to be talking about Dogecoin. Now, when I'm talking about Dogecoin, the reason I think it's about to take off is because it spent some of the more time just going sideways in this entire bottom. Keep in mind that its lowest low that it made was actually in June. So it bottomed at the same point that ETH did. It bottomed at the same point that Chainlink did, that some of these other cryptos that held really high support. It bottomed at a really good point, and it's maintained support throughout that entire period. So seeing it do that, in my opinion, puts it into a class of its own, because it has one of the longer, you know, accumulation periods that we've seen. So far, we're at over 500 days, 523 days to be exact. So when we're seeing this entire bottom formation, that puts it into a different sort of class in its own. It shows that it's been able to hold support in the wakes of all the ups and downs in the market. Some of the more volatile things will actually make lower lows, and some of the more weak cryptos will do that. So seeing Dogecoin holding support, as we're seeing certain cryptos breaking out of their long-term bottom formations, I think that Dogecoin's about to do the exact same thing thing. But here's the thing with Dogecoin, guys, is the ROI with this thing is a lot better than people give it credit for. Looking at where it's at right now today, just to the top of this bottom formation, you're looking at almost a 1x, 93%. And then if we were to, flip this bottom and go up to maybe this resistance here at 21 cents, you're looking at over a 1.5x. If it really started breaking out here and made a move like this to flip this range right there, that would be a pretty significant breakout, and you'd be looking at a 1.5x. That would be pretty similar to what Chainlink just did. And I do believe that this is going to do the same type of stuff. And if we clear that bottom, if we break out of that bottom, do not be the least bit surprised to see a much bigger move taking us all the way back up to the top of that lower high, which it's the same lower high that I talked about over in here. I think that a lot of different cryptos are going to end up going to that specific level. And it's that same lower high that I talked about over in here. I think that the better performing altcoins are going to go to that level. And even though a lot of people are looking at Dogecoin as nothing more than a meme, which it really is, I do believe that it has enough going for it because of the fact they just made an announcement that they're going to be sending Dogecoin to the moon through the help of Elon Musk doing that. Elon Musk has already talked about making it the global payment system of Twitter or X, as he makes it an entire social media investment banking app all in one. And I do think that all of that's going to happen. And so, as Dogecoin is lagged, as it's sitting at the very low end of its cycle, as it's just beginning this new uptrend, I think it's about to take off in a big way. And people that are holding it are going to make a lot of money. And you're going to be surprised if you don't buy it, how much it takes off. These are the type of things that you can put a small amount of money in, put it into a low leverage long, be able to maximize the fullest of that position without risking a whole lot. And you're going to be able to capture, a huge move. And you can hold these moves for, months on end, even all the way into the next bull cycle. I bought Cardano when it was worth 5 cents all the way back at the bottom of its bear market. And when I bought it, I pretty much just threw a couple $1,000 into it. And I thought, if this thing goes into a new cycle, I'm just going to hold this 3x long and I'm just going to see what the heck happens to it. I'll make a lot of money if it takes off. And I remember having to close that trade early before I really got, into new all-time highs when Cardano blew up. But I still made over $50,000 off of a $2,000 investment. So, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't have any sort of liquidation price. I had very low leverage. It wasn't like I was risking very much, and I was still able to make over $50,000. And then I did the same thing with Chainlink and made over $100,000 when it started to move. So those were just very low leverage type of opportunities that I took in the last bear market, and I'm seeing the same type of thing with Dogecoin right now. I think that these are the type of setups that end up popping off in a big way. It only takes small narratives powered behind rich people being Elon Musk to really drive price. And I think that with what we've seen, holding support, being as consistent in this bear market like we have, we've literally just started to flip this prior high as new support. And I think that as long as Bitcoin continues up towards our resistance levels we've talked about, these altcoins, specifically Dogecoin, are going to start catching up to some of those that are already leading the way. With that being said, guys, if you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys want to join my Discord server, see how I'm investing my money, where I'm buying, where I'm selling, different positions, low leverage longs, anything that I'm doing with my money long term inside of the market, you guys need to join the Discord server. You can sign up on my website. Links inside of the description below. On my website, it's just a one-time payment, lifetime access, so you guys are always going to be able to get access to that, and you guys are always going to see what I'm investing in long term. If I take crypto profits and I jump into a completely different market like stocks, commodities, the uranium markets I've already been investing in, you guys are going to be able to follow along and see everything that I'm buying and selling and trading. So with that being said, check it out. Links are in the description. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, peace out.